Now, ladies and gentlemen, now continuing from the theme of the summit, which is building competitiveness from local to global. However, our session today now is in the context of from region to global. Now, I am joined by personalities that are able to shape and influence strategies as well as action plans on competitiveness in their respective role, share perspective, insights, and their thoughts on the topic at hand. Discussing with me is the Deputy Minister for Economic Diplomacy and Openness, Mr. Kostas Fragoniasis. I hope I pronounced your name right. Yep. Then Mr. Ionasis G. Economou from the Senior Associate Dean for Economic Affairs, Texas A&M University at Qatar. Mr. Dimitris Kotsopoulos, CEO of Deloitte Greece. Salim Arullah Al-Sheikh, Advisor to the Minister of Economic, Acting Chief NCO Oman. And Douglas Muzimba, Economist of National Competitiveness Commission of Zimbabwe. I won't be reading their profile. Their profile is up there in the agenda and in the net. But I'd like just to point you to the fact that in this year's GFCC principles, the number 4 and number 9 actually highlights the need for strategies and action plan required on the local, regional, and leveraging of global network. Now, noting that what was covered during the past 3 days during the GFCC meeting, members meeting, as well as the discussion throughout the 3 days, context matters. You know, though we could be facing similar challenges, issues and challenges, each of us from each different region actually has a different starting points and priorities to address in facing competitiveness. Now, with this in mind, I would like to actually seek your initial thoughts on building competitiveness from region to the globe. And I would like to start with the Deputy Minister. And due to the fact that this is the first time I see the title Minister of Economic Diplomacy and Openness. The word openness is there. That means they are open for collaboration, open for discussion. So, Mr. Deputy Minister, what will be your initial thoughts with regards to this?
Let me start by the latest comment of yours. At the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I look after the economic diplomacy of the country, which in practical terms means that I look at the bilateral economic relations and the multilateral ones. But at the same time, I take responsibility for supporting the Greek business community in its efforts to internationalize itself, hence the openness. And at the same time, the attraction of foreign direct investment to Greece by supporting one-stop shop services, fast-track processes in order to successfully attract as much foreign direct investment as possible. Now, on the subject matter, the point is that the world of ours today is the post-globalization period, meaning that the moments that each country, each market would specialize in its own level of expertise, whether it comes by natural resources or by the technological advantages, is given space to the globalization that practically entails the possibility of people to freely move around, such as the European Union, goods and services moving from one country to another, and at the same time, capital flowing from one place to another. And lately, what we see is the intent of nations to look after the strategic autonomy of theirs, so they do not have to depend as much on distant places, and at the same time to make sure that they do not put all of their eggs in one basket, whether it is the energy basket, the technological basket, or the resources basket. As we speak, we have challenges that deal with inflation, with the cost of energy, with the transportation cost being huge in reference to what it was in the past. And the regional cooperation, and I'm going to get into the subject that you raised, is very important. It is truly critical, as we need to make sure that at the regional level, we avail resources, products, services, and levels of expertise in an innovative way so that we can make up for the lost space of the previous times.
Now, I'll move the question to Dimitris. Due to the fact that you are from a global company that operates in Greece. And I like the fact that, you know, when I open the Deloitte brochure, it says there, better futures. Similar to what my organization is all about. We're talking about better futures. Now, where does this place your thoughts with regards to moving from regional to global, whereas you're coming from a global organization? So you're global to local. So your initial thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I mean, let's start first to identify what would be a successful region. What would a region, the competitiveness of a region made it successful? And that, the answer is relatively simple, because it's the region that actually attracts and retains good businesses, while at the same time it enhances the level of living of the inhabitants. So if we start with this definition and talking about the regional level, and I will start with a smaller scale first, the first part I think would have to do to identify in the level of the region or the city or whatever it is, the pros and cons, the strengths and weaknesses. Identifying those and creating a strategic plan will help in identifying opportunities which will be enhanced further through investments to create the competitive environment and enhance overall wealth. We have small examples which I'll use for the sake of simplicity of things we've done, and one of them in reality was endorsed by the ministry and by Mr. Fragogiannis in particular, the case of Astypalea, the case of a small island in the Aegean Sea to which we supported with a strategic plan, identifying strengths, identifying areas of improvement, identifying opportunities, and helping overall to the establishment of a better environment, of a more competitive environment, and subsequent to that, many things have happened. Similar to this, we are doing the same thing for a smaller island, Halki, where in reality it's an island that has a lot of great infrastructure, which if utilized, it can help increase the number of the population and potentially introduce digital nomads, which would be very interesting and certainly very beneficial for the area. So having this in mind, you can realize that, I mean, not just the small regions and just the small islands, but when we're talking about the region, we can talk about Patra, we can talk about Thessaloniki, about Ioannina, or even bigger areas. We can talk about Eastern or Western Macedonia, and overall for Greece, of the things that we can do as Greece in order to enhance our competitiveness and innovation at the global level. The very important part has to do with the collaboration. And when I say collaboration, collaboration of academia with the businesses, with the startup environment and the government will help in putting together new ideas, will help in go-to-market strategy, and of course, creating synergies and efficiencies due to economies of scale.
Okay,
so,
Yanis, you're going into prescription. I'll hold you to that. We'll come back, we'll revisit that later. But as I said, I'm trying to get the initial thoughts with regards to that, because I would expect some dynamic conversations, because so far towards the day, we've heard a lot of people agreeing to each of the panelists. I'm just curious to know, whether there will be some disagreement on this stage. But let's jump to Ioannis, as you're the one who actually, a foreigner working in another region. So what are your initial thoughts with regards to the topic that we're going to discuss today?
Excellent. Before I start, I would like to thank the organizers of this event. It's fascinating. Thank you very much. I'm originally an Athenian, but I work for Texanam at Qatar, so it's a great pleasure to be here. So Yes, Rusdi, as you said, we are a foreign university in the state of Qatar. We have been there for the last 20 years. We are one of the state universities of Texas. There are 3 more colleagues here from the main campus. In fact, Texas A&M is a system with 11 campuses in the state of Texas and 1 campus outside the state, which is the one in Qatar. We have been there for 20 years. This is the 20th anniversary. We recently signed an agreement with the state to be there for another decade, so we'll be there for at least 30 years. And it's an amazing to see the whole thing grow. The country, as you know, the country is young. Most of you know that on Sunday we're starting the FIFA World Cup, so the whole world will be looking at us. Already they look at us in many different ways. But we have been a great supporter of the state in the development, from the very basics, from the infrastructure, all the way to the what we call a knowledge-based economy. Okay. Personally, I'm an engineer, and I'm really fascinated to be in a country which develops and contributes to this development. We can talk more later on the details, if you wish.
Yes. Now, let's go to Salim. We've had prior discussion previously with regards to this. Now, again, my question to you is almost similar with regards to, however, the context is going to be a bit different because due to the fact that you are in charge of the national competitiveness itself, looking at it. So we've heard this morning about Oman 2040. Now, just about 2-3 minutes, your initial thoughts with regards to, is there some plans with regards to looking at competitiveness from a regional and global perspective in Oman?
Well, thank you, Rajdi, and thank you one more time for all of you actually for giving me a chance to talk about semi-government office. It's called National Competitiveness Office, which actually trying to enhance government on improving its competitiveness. In fact, first, just I would like to mention that we are defining competitiveness as it's defined by many of international organizations as an optimal use of institutions, resources, and policies in such a way that increase the productivity and end up with better life standing or standards. So what we are doing actually, we are working with our stakeholders and mainly government organizations, private sector, and some of civil society institutions to enhance or to improve actually many different aspects in such a way that be reflected as a better productivity. And we are going beyond that actually by trying to ensure that what we are doing inside the country being reflected on international indices. Why is that? That's actually because of we are dealing with some of important international indices as a platform of learning, firstly, and then as a platform of reflecting what we are doing and re-export what we are doing actually to the world. So for an example, let me give you a very quick example. If we talk, for example, one of the well-known indices, which is a competitiveness index, which is published by World Economic Forum. Firstly, we are actually checking one of the things that we are doing, actually checking the top list countries and seeing what's the best practices that they are doing. So we are moving these ideas to be to localize them within the country. So we are moving from global to local, and then we add value to that ideas, make them like more suitable with the local context, and then actually we're getting ensure that being reflected on the index to be a lesson for others. So moving from local to globe. So that's what they are doing.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Well, now, Ioannis, you opened the door with regards to Qatar hosting the World Cup. Last night, I had a conversation with Douglas with regards to his support France for the World Cup. So now, Douglas, coming from an African country, Zimbabwe, what are your initial thoughts with regards to talking from, because you're almost the sole representative from the African region here. So what are your initial thoughts with regards to taking this competitiveness from local to regional to global?
Oh, thank you very much, Abdul. And let me start by thanking the GFCC for organizing this wonderful summit. And as you rightly pointed, coming from Africa, so I will give my presentation within the African context in particular, or the developing countries at large. And maybe let me start by highlighting that Africa, maybe like any other regions, we are integrated within the regional economic communities framework. And recently we concluded the African Free Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, that came into force in May 2019. And that's a regional bloc that is trying to amalgamate the 8 regional economic communities that are recognized by the AU. And the AFCFTA, it is the largest free trade area. It is the largest free trade area the whole world. That is in terms of country membership. 54 countries have signed that agreement, and to date, 44 countries have ratified. But having said that, you find that maybe in terms of intra-African trade, it currently stands at 18%, and the contribution to global trade is a measly 1%. And that shows there is a lot that needs to be done to move from regional to global competitiveness. The world is shifting, is moving, so it's no longer about comparative advantage or boasting of the naturally gifted or endowed resources, but it's now about competitive advantage. That's why maybe we have countries that are being competitive and are doing well in the global arena, besides being not naturally gifted with the natural resources. And maybe as we discuss further, maybe I will highlight what needs to be done for the African continent to integrate into the global trade landscape. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that opens the door with regards to what Dimitris has mentioned. You've given examples just now, actually. Now, I believe in the power of narratives. And this morning, we've heard stories. Because, it's about perception. Stories needs to be shared with regards to success so that, it creates investors' confidence. It creates trust. Now, before we get into those prescriptions that was mentioned by both of you, I'll go back to you, Sir, Deputy Minister. Now, for the past 3 days, we've heard success stories with regards to what the Greece has done. Now, what is the magic formula? What is the secret sauce?
Well, secret sauce requires a great deal of cooking and a great deal of hard work and perseverance and the right people and difficult choices. But the truth of the matter is that we, 3.5 years ago, decided to do what is right. And by that I mean to deploy the political stability, to take advantage of the momentum of economic growth, the social cohesion, the foreign investment being acceptable, the human talent in Greece that is well-skilled to be available, and a set of lucrative incentives. But the most important is that we made sure that people who come to Greece to invest are given the red carpet treatment in the sense that they have a partner with whom they speak the same language. And by that, I do not mean English or French. I mean, mentality-wise, we share the same value set and we speak the same language with them. At the same time, we invested in focused segments of the economy, such as green energy, such as digital economy, such as artificial intelligence, the biotech, shipping and tourism, which is a traditional aspect of the Greek economy. But we've also undertaken flagship projects. And I would like, with your permission, to stay in that flagship projects idea for another 2 minutes. Think of it as a race. And in that international race, you are behind because there is others that are ahead of you. You start running as fast as possible, but you are behind. Others run too. So the only way to excel, the only way to make it is by doing what I call leapfrogging. Leapfrogging is the effort of a company, a corporation, or a country by identifying a niche of its own expertise in which it is able to excel and show to the rest of the world and those who observe the race that they can do a fine job if needed. So we've undertaken flagship projects such as the Smart and Sustainable Astypalia project that was mentioned by Dimitris earlier, in which we deployed forces together with a group of Volkswagen in making sure that a corporation and the government can together do something great for the benefit of the people. There are 4 pillars to this project. Pillar number 1 is to shut down the diesel generators that provide energy to the island and substitute it with a hybrid system, so the sun and the wind fill up the batteries of the island that provide the energy to the island itself. Second pillar is electrification. So if you go to the island nowadays, you will find charging stations everywhere. The police car is electric. Every car is electric, the scooters, the bicycles, even the ambulance is electric. But you don't need to have a car because the innovation aspect of it is that not anybody needs to have a vehicle of its own. There is a shared network of vehicles for everyone to enjoy. And at the end of the day, the third pillar is the most important, whereby the transportation mode is not the traditional one where you wait for the bus to come by every half an hour and take you to the other side of the island. So what you do is you use your smartphone, and there is an app that is made for that purpose, and you call an e-van to pick you up from where you are and take you to where you want to go, which brings a picture of the future today. Of course, there is roads of excellence, signage of excellence, 5G network, and we are ready to test in that island the autonomous driving when that becomes available around 26 to 27. So we managed to do that in a comprehensive way and bring today a picture of the future, but at the same time use it as a flagship project and showing to the world that this project can be realized in Greece in a joint effort of a corporation and the Greek government to the benefit of the people. And to make sure that we do things right and we don't do what we think is right, we've invited 2 universities, one from the UK and one from Greece, to measure the impact of our decision-making process and the project itself to the lives of the people. So I could carry on with other projects, but the principal idea and answer to your question is that we did what we think is right. We did the obvious thing in meritocracy and by selecting the right people, and plenty of flagship leapfrogging projects.
Yeah, thank you very much. Dimitris, I'm going to save you for last after all 4 of them said, because I would like you to bring your consultant hat. Now, let's talk to Ioannis. Now, you're operating in an environment, in another environment. So, what has worked? Example stories that that has worked for you in Qatar or in the region, for you to share with members of the audience.
Thank you very much. So I think what has worked for us, for me and for the institution, is the establishment of Qatar Foundation in 1995. We're now close to 30 years of existence. This has been the vision of the Father Emir and Sheikh Hamoza that established a truly international center for excellence in terms of education, research, innovation, and culture. The flagship programs was the the establishment of 6 American universities, where one of them, the others is Carnegie Mellon, Georgetown, Northwestern, Virginia Commonwealth, and Cornell, each one of us with a different college. We're the College of Engineering. In addition, there has been a number of other initiatives. We have in the total of approximately at the moment 4,000 students from all over the world. We are at the moment 50-50, 50 local, 50 international, and this intensifies the concept from local to global. In addition to this, later on in the late 2000s, we had the establishment of the Qatar National Research Fund, which supports research and innovation worldwide. Essentially, through this, we have developed an impressive network of collaborations. As Texas A&M at Qatar, we have established collaboration with places like MIT, Imperial College. I'm very proud that we have brought also funds. This is direct funding, Mr. Minister. We have collaborated with the Technical University, NTUA, the National Technical University of Athens, the Aristotle University, University of Patras, Demokritos, and many other institutions. We have brought something on the order of 10 million euros through direct funds to support research and innovation. And then we're moving now into the next phase, which will involve the commercialization and the actual implementation of the mature research into products and processes. I consider this to be the most important establishment of the country for the next generation, which of course is based on what we call the knowledge-based society. Because as we all know, I mean, we're very fortunate in terms of fossil fuels, but this will have to come to an end in the foreseeable future. So I think this has been a very successful story, unique worldwide. There are many more things to come. We're working on this, but I think it has worked very, very well for the last 30 years.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Now, Douglas, you are ready with your list. You know, you're saying that, you know, just now, before I stop you, you're talking about these are what your thoughts with regards to things that are needed for Africa. So do you mind sharing?
Yes, thank you very much. I think for the past 3 days, we have been talking about innovation. And as we were talking about innovation, that's one factor, maybe, that the African countries and even the developing countries also need to consider if they are to integrate into the global economy. And why am I saying innovation? In as much as maybe for many developing countries, it may be difficult maybe to compete across the whole value chain of particular products. But what they can do is maybe to leverage on the already existing regional value chains within the context of the African free trade agreements and participate in global value chains, thus maybe specializing in a certain niche. And that way, African countries can integrate into the global economy. We have countries that have successfully done that, like Bangladesh, and maybe you may also need to know that in terms of estimates by UNCTAD, it is believed that about 80% of global trade, it is in global value chains. And the OECD, it estimates that at about 70%. So leveraging on the already existing regional value chains to participate in the global economy, it is key. Because as developing countries may be being competitive across the whole value chain, it may be difficult for us. Secondly, the global economy is going digital. The World Bank, it estimates that about 15% of the global GDP, it is in the digital economy. And it further estimates in 2021 that about 14.5 trillion of trade is being moved digitally. But of that 14.5%, you find that about 41% there is cybercrime. And that comes back to the issue of trust that we were talking about, and even the issue of trust that you have just highlighted a few minutes ago. So, as the world is going digital, then there is now need for regional economies to entrench the aspect of digital into these trade agreements. We have countries that have already signed and ratified the digital economy agreements. But if you look at maybe the developing countries, we are lagging in that respect. So there is need to bridge that digital trust gap. Because it doesn't matter whether the goods maybe are going to be delivered physically, but one way or the other, it is being done digitally. And because of that skepticism, especially within the developing countries, maybe to do things online, we will find that maybe we are lagging behind in terms of participating in the global trade. So there is need for that bridging that digital trust gap.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Salim.
Yes, please.
So, I know that the 2040 is an ongoing project. Any success story or shared of examples that you'd like to share with the others?
Yes. First, I would like to go back to your first question. What's the secret of success? Yes. So if I would like to say something in this regard, actually, I'm going to say, I think if you have a good planning, good implementing, and good evaluating, then being able to getting a feedback to be an input for the next circle of improvement, I think that will be the full secret of success. In Oman, actually, as the case in many other countries, actually, we have our own successful stories on improving our competitiveness and directing our efforts on achieving national goals. And my colleague, Omar, actually spot some lights on Oman's Vision 2040 today's morning. And before this vision, actually, we have what is called Oman's Vision 2020. And that vision, actually, it was the first national vision. We started working on it in 1996, embarking in building on that vision. And definitely, actually, returning back to to my first idea, that actually we benefit from the international experience and best practices on doing visions, and because it was the first vision in the region, I think that it's inspired many of neighbor countries to start their visions, either national visions or some of them actually they have sectorial vision or sectorial strategies, as they sometimes calling it. Now already 3 years since we finished that's the period of 2020 vision, and in fact to start the new vision, 2040 vision, we evaluated what has been done in that vision, what's already where we succeeded and where we failed to achieve. So some of international organizations in cooperation with one of Oman's universities did a study to evaluate the achievement of the government on that vision, and they concluded with a report saying that almost, if I'm not mistaken, 75% of the vision already achieved by the government, 25 not. So to focus on the successful part, and specifically I'm going to talk about the economy side. During that 20 years, actually, we maintain a sustainable economic growth of almost 5%, with controlling low level of inflation, almost around 1%, low level of unemployment, almost 1.5% in average, and we enlarged the portion of foreign direct investment. And also we did some improvement on term of diversification of our economy. And this is very, very important aspect, in fact, because being away of relying on one source, our main source of income, as the case that we have it in Oman, as we are relying on gas and oil as a main source of income, is very important. For that reason, but that's why I'm saying actually that we take this evaluation of that vision to be part of the input of the next vision, which we are in right now. So one of the things that we have to focus on and work it seriously is to moving away from relying on oil and gas, especially if you know that the return from oil and gas is representing around between 75 to 80% of government income, and representing around 40 to 45 of the GDP of the economy. So here we need to focus, and actually we proved that we are successful in other aspects of the economy.
Okay, Dimitris. You started with your prescription. After hearing all these four gentlemen, now does the prescription falls into place? Are they following what your initial thoughts are, or there's certain things you would like to add further?
The prescription definitely falls into place. I mean, what Salim just said exactly covers the steps that somebody needs to follow in order to achieve competitiveness, enhancement of competitiveness through innovation. I am very fortunate to have success stories to share. The first one being the formation, I mean, because what you've said before is the creation of a great sauce. The sauce needs a great cook, needs a lot of work, needs great ingredients. And the ingredients need a lot of work at the cultivation part to have the right ingredients. So one of the things that was done by the government has to do with the Elevate Greece. Elevate Greece is a platform that has been established in order basically to be able to capture all the startups that exist, so at least you can identify where we stand and what we have. And the fortunate thing is, as we speak, we have approximately 700 companies in that platform, and there are incentives from the government to help them invest and grow further. So it's the first part that we've said, identifying where we stand in order to take the next step and proceed with enhancement of value. We also have, as Deloitte Greece, a very good example, which has to do with what we did in Thessaloniki, where we created the technology hub. What we did is we did a due diligence in the region. Great potential, great ingredients arriving from where? From the universities. The highest number of students over population compared to most of the European cities. Great place to live in. And up to that time, what we've seen is that there were not as many interesting jobs for well-educated professionals. So what we did, we worked with the universities, established MOUs with all the universities in the region. A second part, we established relationships and MOUs with all the centers of excellence and all the centers of development in the region. And we started putting together a team which has now managed to become approximately 1,000 people, which supports Greek territory, Italian territory, UK territory, and Belgian territory for the time being. And I have a dream, somebody has said that before me, that this can expand even further. Now, besides that, and talking about regions and identifying the right spots, we're doing exactly the same thing in Patra. We're inaugurating our offices on the 15th of December. We already have 70 people, and we have a dream again that this would be significantly higher, but we are already in agreements and memorandum of understandings with the universities there. And the same thing, not taking the info from the minister, the deputy minister that talked earlier, but a little bit before, we went to Yanana. And the place that you'll all be visiting tomorrow, we have already established a relationship, we have already come to an agreement with the university, and the ultimate goal is beginning of January to have an establishment there. All this is basically being close where the universities are, where the knowledge is, business with the academia, with the research centers, working together to enhance competitiveness of the region. I mean, not using us, TeamViewer, a German company, has selected Ioannina to establish a center to enhance further its technological capabilities. And I do believe that's of extreme importance. A final note from my end, irrespective of what we do and how we do it, it's extremely important, and again, this is something that Salim said, I'm just repeating, monitor the progress, monitor the process, and adjust whenever required in order to establish that you get the value you initially wanted to get. If something changes, you might need to change the route, but you need to monitor and be focused.
Now, this question is specifically for you, Deputy Minister, due to the fact that for the past 3 days we've heard the success story of Greece. Now, is there anything that you would like to do over? Cautionary tale, or things to watch out for, or simply you believe in the context of what Dimitris was mentioning or the others have shared would have not worked in Greece? So,
I truly believe in the context of what Dimitris mentioned, and I think that Greece made it through particularly hard times. When our government took over 3.5 years ago, we faced a tremendous challenge of migration in our neighborhood, then the pandemic that affected every country in the world. Then we had the issue with the terrible event of Russia invading Ukraine, leading to severe consequences in the territory and in the region. We have inflation, at the same time a very significant increase in transportation costs and commodities, and the world appears to be a little bit different today than what it used to be 4 years ago. Despite all of this, we made it through the hard times by deploying the essentials, as Dimitris mentioned in the past, which is to make the right choices, to use the right people, to attract foreign direct investment, to promote regional and global cooperation, and at the same time to make sure that we provide to the country all of the reforms that are needed. Now, if there is one thing that I will do a little bit different and a little bit better, this is the pace by which reforms have been made. I can give you one excellent example and one not so excellent example to illustrate my point. The excellent one has to do with the digital transformation in the country. In 2018, in Greece, there were 18 million digital transactions. In 2022, in the first 9 months, over 700 million digital transactions. So this is a great success story of how a country can lead the way from an analog community into a digital community, and how the people are willing to accept the idea of converting from their ordinary ways of conducting themselves in reference to what they do with the state, with the country, into a digital platform. The example that I would like to do all over again is the pace by which reforms have been materialized in our ways of attracting human capital to Greece, in what we call the brain redrain, and making sure that we find clever ways to attract those people who have fled the country and have found a way to live abroad. In our latest history, in the last 15 years, more than 400,000 people left Greece, seeking an employment in nearby European countries or the United States or other destinations of the world, not because they do not like to live in Greece, but simply because they were unable to find a job that is as good as their expectations. So we need to work harder in that respect and make sure that we provide the quality of the work that is needed for attracting these people back home.
Well, okay, that is interesting because this is the only time where you're hearing that, regrets of you want to do over things. Now,
it's not so much a regret. It is the additional effort that I would like to have put in order to make sure that it is not just attracting foreign direct investment that brings a capex of 100 million and generates 20,000 jobs, but it is the kind of jobs that will attract people who have left the country and return back home.
Okay, well noted. Now, we're left with little time. Now, I'm going to go from Douglas and we'll work our way back. Now, if the audience were to remember you, what will be the last word that you would like to put out there? That Douglas said this, Salim said this, Dimitri said this, Yannis says this. Okay, let's start with you, Douglas. 1 minute or less.
Thank you. Negotiation and the conclusion of digital economy agreements, as well as maybe mutually recognized agreements in view of the increasing contribution of services to the global economy, is key. And maybe lastly, the future of the global economy is green. So there is need to move with the actions that promote the use of environmental friendly methods and techniques in order to decarbonize and reduce carbon footprints, because demand for organic products that have little carbon footprints is on the increase, from 18 billion in 2000 to 120.7 billion in 2020. So there is an opportunity there to integrate in the global economy. Thank you.
All right. Salim, 1 minute or less.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Myself, actually, I would like to emphasize on two quickly points. The first one is being aware that actually building competitiveness is not an overnight work. It's not a one-time process. So it's a continued effort, and always there's a room actually to improve our regulations, re-engineer our process, and so on. This is the first point. The second point is to be able actually to build competitiveness from local to globe. It's very important, firstly, actually to learn from the globe. It's very important to catch, to be inspired by others' ideas, then to bring it in, to add value on that one, and then I think at that time we'll be able to export something that has value to the world.
Dimitri.
Very quickly.
Things, starting with the country-specific ingredients. We do have the ingredients. We have great record in terms of STEM skilled people. Reskilling is required, and there's a lot of effort put on that. And also, I fully agree with Mr. Fragogiannis, we need to bring back the brain regain. We need to enhance incentives for brain regain because this will help us significantly. Two things on a wider scale. One, at all times, you need to perform your due diligence. Identify and understand where you stand prior to going to the next step, prior to going to the strategic analysis, which will put together the options. Finally, innovation is a team sport. You cannot do it on your own. You have to collaborate. You have to form partnerships. You have to work with others.
All right. Yannis.
Thank you very much. Let me start by making a comment to the Minister and to Dimitris. me and my family were products of brain drain. And we have no time to discuss this further, but I think there is significant more that need to be done before we start having a brain gain in this country. Now, going to my specifics. Coming from academia, I should say that there is a global challenge for talents, whether these are students, young engineers, young scientists, faculty, and this global challenge has to be, in order to be successful, you have to be unbiased, you have to show trust to the people, you have to be fair, and you have to show a stable environment. I think this applies to any kind of business, but when it comes to innovation, to technology, I think this is extremely important. I feel that we have less and less barriers worldwide. We get top people coming from Africa, we get top people coming from Southeast Asia, and in order to be competitive in a very competitive world, we have to continue focusing on these global issues and operate with high-level values. Thank you.
Deputy Minister, sir.
Well, my last word is that Greece is committed to providing growth for its people. And it was 10 years ago that we were speaking of Grexit. Now we are speaking of growth with GR Capital. And I hope that soon we will be speaking of Grexcellence with GR Capital.
My apologies for rushing all of you because you know the red beacon is there, and I keep remembering Roberto was harping with regards to speed. Well, now the GFCC actually has opened the door for what Mike has said, the 3 C's. Conversation, that's what we're doing. Collaborate, hopefully, post this meeting, we will collaborate. Post summit, we'll see collaboration among members and participants. And then I think something that that was touched earlier, that we will create joint initiative and programs to address the issues that were raised during the past 3 days. I would like to thank the panelists and thank you, the audience, for listening. And please, a round of applause to the people. Thank you very much, sir.